Hi again then guys, and so we've got another Gran Turismo 6 drag spec setup for you today, and this time it's for a kind of underappreciated vehicle for the most part, the Mitsubishi HSR-II Concept. It's an 80s car, one of the quickest cars in the game from the 80s actually, and kind of a supercar if you actually consider what it can do. Now I've gone for racing soft tyres, obviously everyone has their own preference there. As far as suspension, I've increased the ride height to 120 because this is primarily a launch tune. You really want to use that all-wheel drive to your advantage. For the springs, we've got 650 on the front, 450 on the rear. For the dampers, 3 all-round, except for the rear compression, which we've got on 1 to take up that launch off the line. Anti-roll as low as possible to keep the suspension relatively soft, because as I said, you really want to get as much out of that all-wheel drive as you can, all the advantage that you can off the line. Camber and toe, we've got neutral. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. For the diff, relatively simple setup, low initial torque, high acceleration and low braking. We've got a torque split of 30-70. As far as power, pretty simple, just give it all the upgrades plus an oil change of course. I will be running NOS on this tune. You want the full weight loss package, and it is a pretty lightweight car actually for an all-wheel drive vehicle. And as far as the gearbox, we've got an auto setting of 230, then for the individual gears 2.6, 1575, 1.1, 825 and 650 with a final drive of 3.4. As always, I would recommend turning traction control off, and as with most of my drag tunes, I will be using an auto box just to show what it's capable of at basically the minimum settings. Now as always, I like to put my drag tunes up against a typical vehicle that you'd probably come up against. It's a vehicle which I've put a lot of my cars up against. The Supra, very popular model, has a huge power advantage over this model, doesn't have all-wheel drive, but does have a top speed advantage which is around or over 20 miles per hour. A lot more power, a lot more torque. So let's see how they compare. Both are using NOS of course, both are fully tuned, and as always I'm not holding back with the Supra or with this car. So off the line of course the all-wheel drive would always give you the advantage, but the Supra has a reputation for being a very fast car, and it is a very fast car. So let's see how long it takes for the Supra to catch up. Quite a while, as you can see. In fact, this Mitsubishi can actually outrun the Supra to a clean roughly 2,500 meters before the Supra overtakes. That's pretty impressive considering this is an under 7 horsepower, or under 700 horsepower car compared to the Supra, which is a 944 horsepower car. So pretty massive difference. The Supra also has a huge amount more torque and a significantly higher PP if I remember correctly. I may be wrong about that though, so don't quote me on that. 1.2 seconds behind the Supra by the 5,000 meter mark, and as far as sheer spec and acceleration times, this Mitsubishi can hit 60 in 1.4 seconds, 100 in 3 seconds, it hits 250 in just over 20 seconds, which is very good for an all-wheel drive model that doesn't have as much power as some of the others. Generally they tend to taper off as far as top-end acceleration. This car doesn't though. It's very strong top-end, which is unusual for a Japanese performance car. They generally are better at low speeds, launch, that kind of thing. It'll cover the quarter mile in 8.1. It's actually a fraction under 8.1. It'll cover 4 miles from a standing start, which is 6,400 meters, in dead on 1 minute. So it's a seriously rapid vehicle. So if you do decide to use this drag spec tune for your Mitsubishi HSR-II, which incidentally if you haven't bought it I would recommend that you do so, because it's a 300 grand car that can outrun cars with a lot more power. It's a very underappreciated model. And if you're new to the channel and you'd like to keep up with other drag tunes like this as soon as they're released, then be sure to hit subscribe down below, and as always, thanks for watching.